The story begins with an American boy finding himself getting bullied by a rebellious Kungfu prodigy at his school. He is away from his hometown and finds himself in big trouble as the bullies make his life really hard at the school and in town as well. Welcome to Movie Recall. In today's video, we'll be going through the 2010 action film The Karate Kid. It's time to recall. Let's get started, turn on subtitles, and spoilers ahead. This is a story of a 12-year-old boy named Dre Parker. At the start of the movie, we see Dre is upset because he, along with his single mom Sherry, have to move to Beijing. The boy does not want to leave, but Sherry's job is in Beijing now. Dre is not too thrilled about it as he thinks his hometown is way better than Beijing. He does not even learn the Chinese language as his mother does. However, the boy's mother has to go and live there for some time. As they land in Beijing, both of them are directly taken to their apartment building. They will be living there as long as Sherry has work in Beijing. Dre finds it hard to adjust there as the atmosphere is completely different, and on top of everything, there is a language barrier. People are not fluent in English. Even watching TV there is no fun for the boy. Sherry sees a jacket lying on the floor and asks Dre to always hang it on the hanger. She then asks him to call Mr. Han, the maintenance man at the apartment building. Dre goes to look for Mr. Han. When he finally finds him, he tells him that he is having lunch and that they will have to wait. While waiting for Mr. Han, Dre sees that he is disturbed by a fly. He thinks Mr. Han is going to catch the fly with chopsticks as he saw in Kung Fu movies, but it turns out that he uses a fly swatter. Well, that's no fun at all. Dre gets disappointed and leaves. Dre goes out as he was extremely bored. He finds out that it is quite easy to mingle with people there, despite the language barrier causing some problems. He plays basketball and tennis with the local residents who teach him a lesson about never underestimating an old man. Out there, he sees a beautiful girl of his age named Mei Ying. He approaches her and the two get to know each other. The girl tells him that she is a violinist. Dre is relieved to know that Mei Ying is fluent in English. Dre plays some music and then dances to it. Mei Ying asks him if she can touch his hair and he says sure. In a moment, the two are then joined by a 14-year-old boy named Cheng. The boy likes Mei Ying and seeing her talking to Dre does not sit well with him. This guy is a bully as he snatches the note away from Mei Ying and slams it on the ground. Dre picks up the notes and Cheng does the same. Thinking that there is something going on between the two, Cheng beats up Dre. His tiny body is dropped to the floor easily as Cheng is a lot bigger and stronger than him. Dre gets up to fight, making a Kung Fu pose, but it turns out to be a bad idea. Cheng beats him very badly, and he tries to fight back, but in vain. This is the first time in his life that he is bullied by someone in this fashion. After being badly beaten up by Cheng, Dre uses makeup to hide his bruises so that his mother won't find out about his fight. The next day, Dre's mother takes him to a school, and he finds out that Mei Ying and Cheng also attend the same school. In the afternoon, Mr. Han goes to their apartment to fix the broken hot water faucet. Sherry gets home and again gets irritated as she sees Dre's jacket on the floor yet again. Mr. Han, who is still there, sees the argument between mother and son. On the other hand, Dre and Mei Ying get closer because they are classmates at school. Mei Ying tells Dre that she intends on entering a music competition that means a lot to her and her parents. Their closeness does not, of course, sit well with Cheng, who is at the same school, so Dre has to avoid him as he bullies him harshly whenever he runs into him. Dre can be seen hiding whenever Cheng is around because if he's seen by Cheng and his friends, they will stop him and bully him. One day, Dre goes out with his mother and he sees children learning Kung Fu at a Kung Fu college. He is amazed to see this. Dre joins the college, but to his bad luck, when he goes there, he sees Cheng practicing Kung Fu there. He feels hopeless as he joined the college and hopes to make himself strong enough to beat Cheng. Dre is extremely annoyed and he leaves the place, arguing with his mother as he's been hiding the fact that he's been getting bullied and it has been taking a toll on him. He starts crying and tells his mother that he regrets following her to Beijing. He also tells her that he wants to go back to Detroit, but Sherry tells him that it is not going to be possible as of right now. The bullying factor has now started to affect him emotionally. One day, Dre goes on a school trip to the Forbidden City where Cheng also participates. After exploring the Forbidden City, Dre sees Cheng and his friends on the road he is about to pass. He immediately goes into hiding. There, he sees a bucket full of dirty water and he has an idea. He throws the dirty water at Cheng and the boys who always bully him. He throws the dirty water at Cheng and his boys who always bully him. The boys chase Dre in the city streets and manage to corner him in a back alley. Dre is now trapped, and this is when Dre realizes that throwing dirty water at them was probably not a good idea. He is 1 against 6, and each of those 6 is a karate black belt. Cheng and his gang brutally beat up Dre. Even when Dre falls to the ground hopelessly, Cheng does not stop and continues beating the boy up. One of Cheng's friends comes forward and tells him that this is enough, but Cheng says no. Cheng tells him that their teacher has taught them no mercy on the fallen, and no mercy it is. He goes forward to strike Dre, but Mr. Han appears and saves Dre. The boys then attack Mr. Han, seeing that he is just an old man. However, it turns out Mr. Han is a real Kung Fu master. He fights the boys off with ease simultaneously, not even hurting them as much. He simply fends off all of their attacks. When the boys see that this is not going to work, they get out of there. Dre was amazed to see how good Mr. Han is at Kung Fu. Mr. Han then helps Dre heal his wounds using the ancient Chinese medicine method of fire cupping and tells him that Cheng and his friends are not inherently evil but have been made that way by their teacher, who is known as Master Li. He always teaches his students not to show any kind of compassion to their enemies. Mr. Han says that there are no bad students, only bad teachers. Dre is now desperate because if he wants to survive in this town, he is gonna have to find a way to deal with his bullies, so he begs Mr. Han to teach him Kung Fu. He does not agree and instead takes him to Master Li at the Kung Fu College to make peace with Cheng and his friends. However, the offer of peace is rudely rejected by Master Li, and he challenges Mr. Han or Dre to fight Cheng. This is when Mr. Han sees a poster about a Kung Fu tournament and says that Dre and Cheng will go one-on-one in the upcoming tournament. He then tells the boys not to disturb Dre at school as he is going to be preparing for the fight. Master Li agrees to these terms, however reluctantly. Mr. Han then explains to Dre that he is going to compete against Cheng in an open tournament. Dre feels he is screwed as he is aware that Cheng is one of the best students at the Kung Fu College. Mr. Han then tells Dre that what Cheng and his friends learned is not real Kung Fu, promising Dre that he is going to teach him real Kung Fu. Dre is very excited that he is going to learn Kung Fu from Mr. Han. He arrives at his place and sees Mr. Han's car, which is parked in the living room. Mr. Han, however, does not want to reveal why it is parked in the living room. Mr. Han starts his training by having him do really common movements, such as taking off and putting on his jacket. Dre does this over and over again. He then starts to get a little frustrated and asks Mr. Han why Kung Fu practice is boring like this. Mr. Han tells him to stay focused. Days go by and Dre is still doing the same practice. He gets fed up with it and snaps at Mr. Han, saying how is he going to beat Cheng just by taking off and putting on his jacket? Dre says that he is going to give up. He's walking out of there when Mr. Han calls him back and attacks him. Dre is easily able to fend off his attacks just by using the moves he's been practicing all along. Dre is surprised. Mr. Han then tells him that maturity and composure are true keys to mastering martial arts, not punch and strength. He explains that Kung Fu exists in everyday life, just like he learned to fend off attacks by taking off and putting on his jacket. After learning the true meaning of Kung Fu, Dre decides that he is going to learn it from Mr. Han with even more dedication now. One day, Mr. Han takes Dre to the Wooding Mountains Taoist temple where he used to practice Kung Fu as a child with his father. Upon arriving at the Kung Fu College, Dre is surprised as he has never seen the Kung Fu movements he gets to see there. He is so amazed to see a woman doing Kung Fu movements that can make a cobra imitate her. He and Mr. Han then practice Kung Fu at the temple for some time. Dre continues his practice in Mr. Han's place, and he always seems very serious about it. After weeks of non-stop practice, Mr. Han gives Dre a day off. Dre goes to see Mei Ying and asks her to skip violin practice so they can have fun together. When they are together, Mei Ying gets a call from her parents as she's late for her violin audition that has been pushed today. When her parents see that Dre made her skip her training, they see him as a bad influence and ask him to never see Mei Ying again. Dre is sad about the events and goes to Mr. Han's place. He is surprised to see Mr. Han, who is really depressed and he is destroying the car. With tears in his eyes, Mr. Han explains that he crashed the car years ago and his son and his beloved wife died in that car crash. He restores his car every year, but destroys it to remind himself of the tragic event. After hearing his teacher's heartbreaking story, Dre is determined to train even harder to give his teacher something he can be happy about. He trains harder and harder as the tournament draws near. Mr. Han takes him to the tournament site where they pay their respect and thank each other for everything they have been through together. Dre thanks his teacher for teaching him so well and being his best friend. Mr. Han thanks him for helping him get out of his tragic cell and his traumatic life. Mr. Han presents him with clothes that people wear in the Wooding Mountains. Dre gets emotional and hugs him. These are the clothes Dre is going to wear in his fight. Mr. Han then helps Dre write and read an apology note in Chinese that he is going to pass on to Mei Ying's father. Her father accepts his apology and allows him to be friends with her again. He even says that he and Mei Ying will attend the Kung Fu tournament to support him. The day of the tournament arrives. Dre is nervous to see so many people out there. We see that Mei Ying and her father are actually out there to support Dre. In the fight, Dre initially lacks confidence and has to drop points because he committed a foul. However, he finally gets up and beats his opponents and advances to the semifinals. Cheng, on the other hand, also defeats his opponents fiercely. Dre then beats one of Master Li's students. Master Li then orders Liang, Dre's opponent, to injure Dre. Liang goes on with a series of attacks aimed at immobilizing Dre's leg, and it results in disqualification, and Dre is now in the final. Dre is then rushed to the medical room. Dre now has a very limited amount of time to return to the ring, so healing has to be quick. His leg looks really bad, but he wants to go out there and fight Cheng. Dre then asks Mr. Han to heal his leg through the fire cupping method. Mr. Han refuses and asks him to give up, but he is persistent. Dre says that he has to fight Cheng because he wants to overcome his fears. On the other hand, the organizers are waiting for Dre to show up, and if he does not show up, he will be declared disqualified from the match. Mr. Han quickly performs the fire cupping healing process on Dre, and he is able to show up in the arena for the final against Cheng. Cheng starts off by throwing Dre out of the canvas, which causes Dre to lose 1 point. However, Dre makes a good comeback when he knocks Cheng down to the floor with a kick to his legs and earns 2 points. Master Li then asks Cheng to hit Dre on the injured leg, and he does so, and Dre loses his balance, allowing Cheng to earn 1 point. One remaining round is now to determine the winner. Dre struggles but manages to get up by imitating the snake stance used by that woman in the Taoist temple. This move succeeds, and Cheng has to change his style of attack. Dre takes the opportunity and brings a hell of a fight to Cheng, defeating him in the end. Dre has won the tournament. Most importantly, he has earned the respect of Cheng and his friends. Cheng gives the trophy to Dre and acknowledges his win. All the other fighters bow respectfully to Mr. Han and take him as their new teacher. Thanks for watching. Please like, subscribe, and click the bell icon to get new movie recaps.